So I want to talk a little bit about Mars.
Yo, man, a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah, there is. There's so much stuff going on, and it's exciting to me. I'm kind of a science nut, and the idea of going to other planets is kind of exciting. Especially with the technology that we have now, where the rovers are tweeting on their own. Well, I don't know how they programmed it, but they'll send out pictures, and then they'll put a little title of what we're looking at as far as the pictures are, and we get all these really cool animations that you can go on to NASA or YouTube or any of these other sites that are enthusiasts, and you can watch the digital sort of recreation of what is happening, like the landers and how they're coming out of orbit and landing, because you can't really see a third person perspective of those experiences, but they can create an animation that looks very realistic and gives you an idea of what actually is happening.
Well, it's pretty intense because I don't recall. I did know at one point how many miles away Mars is from Earth, but at airports you have a ground crew that is motioning these things in as they're flying in, and there's a lot of people to help out the landing of one airplane. And these guys are just doing it, essentially by, if I'm correct, they're not even droning it. It's all through.
It's like pre-programmed.
Yes, programs.
Yeah.
And they just hope for the best, And when they land, they have reason to be happy because there's nobody there guiding it in. It's literally using their science and their fails as well as their wins to
I'm sure they're
think that'll happen.
I'm sure they're using a lot of mathematics, stuff that you and I don't understand.
I can't spell mathematics.
So distance, I did write that down because it is so far. People don't know how seriously far away the moon is, and then how much farther away how far away Mars is.
Right.
And Mars, I think, is the next closest planet to us.
I believe.
So just to the moon, it's 239,000 miles.
So
just to the moon.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
239,000 miles.
Okay.
Just to the moon. Okay. To Mars, 140 million miles. Now, keep in mind, these are orbiting, so the distances change. But when they are at their closest, I think these are the ranges.
Is that right?
Because Mars has this, big, huge orbit around the sun, of course, and it goes at a different speed around the sun than we do. And so the timing to even send these explorers to Mars, it has to be timed so that you can use potentially the gravity of the moon to help slingshot it again to Mars. And in some cases, it'll shorten the length of time. Yeah, to get there.
I know we brought it up before when I asked you if you would go to Mars if they asked for you to go. And I believe that they were saying it's like a 6-month flight.
Yeah, the very shortest right now, I think, is right around 6 months.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So my question was on these, unmanned, craft, is it faster or is it literally take that long? Because lately it seems like that we've had so much talk of Mars that next thing you know that it's there. And it's like, well, wait a minute. But we just had the other rovers that are there. I mean, it just seems like there's so much activity that maybe it's just that we don't know that they're sending so many things out that direction to where things are happening while something is already on its way. So, because
I think that's what it is.
I guess, but in the whole scheme of things, 6 months is absolutely nothing. If that's what it takes for it to get there.
Well, and the U.S., they're not the only country that are doing these missions. The U.S. has been probably the most visible, and NASA's pretty good about promoting the stuff that they're doing. I don't know. Maybe producer Ethan, you can count up the number of missions that have been going to Mars from all countries.
I didn't even know about other countries going.
Yeah. Russia. I think China is involved in it. I think there might be some Middle Eastern. Anything that's gone to Mars. Yeah. And because there's a whole bunch of them, it's really quite surprising. But it takes to communicate with anything that's going to Mars. I think they said it's like 10 minutes to communicate, to send a signal to Mars. and then the return is another 10 minutes. So you're looking at a potential 20-minute delay when you send a signal to get something back.
That's amazingly fast to me. I mean, I can understand, but
Well, considering it's 140
Right.
million miles away.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I was going to say, do you care about
Ethan's got a thing up on the screen that talks about which missions have been successful and which ones have been failures. And there's quite a lot of those red failures on there. Space travel is not an easy thing.
No, but I'm also the believer in like the light bulb. I don't remember the statistic or the facts on it, but it took like 1,000 tries before they could get it right. And those aren't 1,000 failures. That's just 1,000, steps to get closer to the end result. So I just, it's just perfecting it.
Yeah, I was listening to Elon Musk on a podcast. Maybe it was a Joe Rogan podcast, and he was saying that because Joe was talking about the number of explosions that they've had for their different rockets that they're using, and Elon was like, "Yeah, we totally expect this is all, we're learning as we're going,
error, right.
and so we expect these things to happen.
Yeah, it can't not happen.
And it's so expensive." And he's like, "Yeah, well, that's just the way the nature.
That's why
of
it seems like he has so many of those.
Yeah. Okay. So 77 missions to Mars.
Wow.
And of course, some of them are just orbiting. They're not all successfully landing, but at least 77.
Well, that's
missions.
77 beliefs that there's something worthy of going on at Mars. A lot more than the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And I get what I believe what they're going for, but
do you think that there's much value in scooting on by the moon and heading to Mars?
Well, I feel that Mars might has Earth on it. I don't know what the moon is really. I mean, it's cheese, I thought. Right?
It's cheese.
But, it doesn't seem like that on the moon it's not made of anything that you could sit there and attempt to grow anything. And I mean, I don't know what gravity is like there. I mean, is it similar to Earth? It seems more, it's a planet versus a moon. So I just imagine that there's more possibilities. I am not too sure. I had somebody tell me that and I said, well, please share with me because I haven't heard this stuff and I would like to look it up. And I don't want it to be I'd like to know it's factual, not we believe that there's that there's life. I heard that there's life on Mars, but it's little bacteria and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious of like, okay, well, I haven't heard that mainstream.
Yeah,
and that would be out there, I believe. I just think it might be still in the conspiracy sites, not necessarily saying, hey, guess what we found? I don't know how I would not have heard that.
Yeah.
Because I try to keep my ear to the track to hear ahead of that stuff too.
Yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about the conspiracy sides of Mars. So remind me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back to that. As far as the moon is concerned, the moon is an interesting thing to me because evidently there is a form of water. It's in ice, but there's a form of water on the moon.
Is there?
Yeah.
How come I never heard that? I'm not saying that there isn't. I'm just...
Yeah,
why isn't some of this information be out in the front?
Because it's so stinking cold. There's not really a whole lot of value to it, except for the potential of taking water and extracting out hydrogen from the water.
Well, they like to say where there's water, there's life.
Yeah, but there's a lot of other factors that would negate that, including Mars.
Well, they say where there isn't water, there isn't. So I was saying how about this?
Yeah,
I think what they say, the potential of life.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think Elon mentioned that. I think I just read that Elon's talking about we're heading back to the moon or something. I'm like, what? Man, this guy's got so many things going on.
He does. He's amazing. So there, as far as I know, there is water on the moon. It's not. It's frozen, and it's not exactly something we can just easily get to. Although some people have speculated the value of setting up some sort of like base on the moon, and then use some of the natural resources on there to then provide maybe the potential for using water and separating out the hydrogen from it, and using that potentially to fuel rockets and travel from there, so that you wouldn't have, because it's very costly.
Have to transport the water.
Yeah, it's very costly.
Mars, you would, right?
Potentially. They say that there's water on Mars.
Okay, so that I know they've said that, but I don't know who. I hear that too, but I don't think it's the people that are.
No, NASA says so.
Says what? That there's potential water, or they've seen it?
They have scanned. So there's interesting ways for them to discover what exists on a planet, and I don't know the details of it, but what they believe is that there is ice on Mars, and there is H2O ice,
right.
And then there's also carbon dioxide, like really, because it's so freaking cold. I mean, I can't remember what the temperatures are. I have it written down someplace, but it's so cold. It's like dry ice. So
gotcha.
Immediately evaporates into carbon dioxide. Same thing with the water, is they think that if there is in fact ice, which is what their claim is, that it's underground, it's more like what you would call like permafrost, because it is so stinking cold, and there's hardly any atmosphere there's really not much of any atmosphere on the moon, but there's a little bit more on Mars. And without that atmosphere, there's a whole lot of things that happen because of the lack of atmosphere.
Question though.
Mm-hmm.
Would you happen to be able to have to, in order to have water in any form, whether it's frozen or not, would it have to be not frozen at one point in its life?
Yeah. They think that Mars had massive lakes and potentially oceans.
See, I have heard that too, but I just don't know where the facts are at this point, because I know it's nice having, quote, not really exactly, but boots on the ground now. So now they could go, well, over here where some people show, aerial views, it looks like trees, right?
Oh yeah, that's
now maybe they could drive their butts over there and go, okay, it's actually this, or because if they find one bush on that planet, I'm sorry, I think that's life.
That would be amazing. So far, that's not the case.
Yeah,
but in the because I do want to talk about some of the conspiracy things, because I did run across a guy who was adamant that there were trees, and
some of it's compelling to look, and you could.
Yeah, but this is like many, many years ago when we were just orbiting the planet. We hadn't actually landed on it yet. And what you see in pictures can be deceiving. Oh. Yeah, Ethan's bringing that stuff up. But yeah, so I want to chit-chat about that stuff in a little bit. But so the idea that there is, what they believe is there used to be oceans, lakes, and that sort of thing, is because the leftover minerals on the surface. Because and we experience this here on Earth, when an ocean dries up, it leaves a lot of like salty deposits. Yep. And depending on the layering of those deposits, you can kind of get a determination. You can kind of determine how old it can potentially be, how many times it dried and came back.
Sure. It's like our little rings that, if I dare say, I know it's on top of my water heater. Yeah. There's been some leakage, and it had slowly dried up, and you see the levels of pooling that was up on top. Yeah. So it leaves that
those rings
behind. Anyways,
like calciums and I don't know.
But are you saying they're seeing some of that?
They are. And well, see, that's the cool thing about all these rovers is they get on there. They have different instruments to then test. They have these really fancy instruments. They will scoop up, like some of the earlier missions would actually, they have these little shovels, they scoop up some of the material, put it into this little device on the rover, and run, lasers or other, device. I don't even know how you would describe it.
I know.
But you run it through all these like spectrometers and all these things that will then determine what its chemical makeup is. And we have a pretty good record of rocks and geological formations and stuff on Earth that we have done a whole bunch of testing. And it's interesting to find that similar stuff exists on Mars. If you look at the pictures, it looks like it's an Arizona desert or something. So there's a lot of geological formations that are very similar on Mars as on Earth, and so you can kind of infer some of the similar processes. But they've got, quite a few missions that have gone to Mars. In some cases, they're just orbiting Mars, and in other cases, they're actually landing rovers on Mars and testing, looking at a lot of different stuff. I mean, they're cutting into rocks, they're digging up soil. The latest rover, I think, is actually digging up soil, and I call it soil. Maybe they don't even call it soil, but they're digging up this material and they're putting it into these. I mean, they'll scan it and do these different things to it, but then they're going to leave those deposits for a future mission to actually pick up and bring back to Earth to do further analysis.
I'm impressed that they can do that.
Yeah,
especially if communication takes that long, for it to, because I know that they could go out there like Wall-E, go out there and they're on a mission to do things, but they're still waiting to get a little bit of feedback to go here or go there or look there, I mean,
I don't know if they're using any kind of like artificial intelligence in the process that these missions are, but what I believe is that they're programming this stuff, sending it to the rover, and then it executes all these commands. And they have enough feedback via pictures, the other orbiters that are kind of tracking this kind of stuff. They also have at NASA or the Jet Propulsion Lab identical rovers here. So, and they have similar environments, so they can actually pre-program and simulate the rover traveling someplace before actually giving the instruction and doing it. It's like a form of remote control, but you're kind of setting what it's going to do ahead of time. Hit that subscribe button and the bell notifications if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're just listening to the podcast, again, please share it with others that might be interested in listening. And until we see you next time, take care.
And be safe.